guys, it's Rachel with Be Healed Dog Training, and I am coming at you today from my kids' room. They're not here, but we have the windows wide open because the weather's beautiful, but it is a very windy, blustery day, and my mom has tons of wind chimes, which are awesome, and I love them, but I realized you wouldn't be able to hear me. So, sorry the lighting's a little bit funky in here. This is, at least you should be able to hear what I'm saying. This is the best that I can do right now. I've got May co-piloting with me right now, and I think I just woke her up from her nap because I said her name. She's like the classic, just kind of retired dog. She kind of just gets to do what she wants, so she's my entitled girl. Anyway, what I wanted to talk to you guys about today is the leash, because this is a very, very basic training tool that pretty much every dog owner has, and most people aren't using them enough, especially people who are struggling with their dogs. A lot of people are missing out on the leash. I think typically just because we don't think about it. So, first of all, a leash when training your dog. If you are struggling with teaching commands, if you're struggling with controlling energy, if you have just gotten a young quarantine puppy, and what I mean by that is at the time that I'm taking this video, we're all stuck in quarantine, and lots of people are getting puppies right now. So if you've gotten a new puppy, use the leash a lot. Your leash is what provides directional information to your dog, and it gives you physical control and just gives you the ability to help guide the dog and show them and restrain them when you need to. So, for example, when I talk about people struggling to teach commands, if your dog is not so great with sit or down or place and doesn't seem to be understanding it, if you have not started by using leash pressure and guidance to teach that command, go back and try that. Take a step back and re-clarify your commands with a leash. And I've got, as I've been saying in a lot of these videos, I have videos on my YouTube channel that explain step-by-step how to do this stuff. So these videos are not meant to be, these videos I'm doing right now are not meant to be instructional step-by-step videos, mostly just talking about concepts here. But you can go check out some training videos, whether mine or somebody else's, and look at how to teach these commands with a leash. And the reason being, when we are teaching the dog something new, and I'm going to use the sit command today as my example. What I see a lot of people try to do when they teach the dog sit is they start saying the word sit and then maybe trying to hold a treat up and all that, and that's great. I use food luring when I teach dogs. There are ways that you can lure the dog into a sit. You can, I see lots of people press down on their back at the base of the tail, also a really great technique. I do that as well. But if you don't have a leash on to begin with, your dog can just get bored and meander away or get distracted and see something that they'd rather be doing instead, and then you're trying to refocus your dog, and you may not have your dog's full attention, so they're not going to be able to absorb the training as well. Also, you can use your leash to actually help physically put the dog in a position that will cue the sit a little bit easier. So typically, when we're teaching sit, if you use straight upward pressure on your leash, that tends to make the dog bring their head up, which also encourages the butt to go down. So that's just one example of how your leash can help you with clarifying the commands, but also literally helps you keep a hand on your dog so they don't just go meandering off. And it's the same thing when you've got an overly excited dog who you're struggling with, getting wound up in the house and running around and going all over the place, and you're yelling at it or trying to wrangle it or whatever. Have a leash on that dog so that you can help to control the energy, so that you can give corrections when you need to, so that if your super excited dog who doesn't listen to commands or maybe doesn't even know them yet, if they are completely loose and someone opens the front door, they could slip out of a door. If you've got them attached to a leash, that can prevent that from happening. So again, there's lots and lots of reasons that you want a leash on your dog. Now, when we start talking about like doing duration work, for example, keeping a dog on place for longer periods of time after they initially learn the command, you can use your leash as a tie back, and that is where you just tie your leash that's connected to your dog. You tie it loosely to a heavy piece of furniture so that if the dog does break command, they're not able to just run through the house or sneak down the hallway or anything like that. So again, even though you may not be physically holding on to that leash in that moment, You can use it as a tie back when you're doing duration work, and that's something that should always be done supervised. That, you know, that's not something, you don't tie your dog back and then leave or go downstairs or whatever. What else? Oh, I had something else in mind. Oh, and then also what you can do is when you get to a point, like with your obedience commands, where your dog is getting the concept and you're not having to cue them with the leash every single time, you still, earlier on in the earlier phases, may want to leave that leash on the dog and just let it drag the ground. So like with puppies especially, I'm telling owners, your puppy should pretty much always have a leash on it, even if it's just dragging it around. Get them used to that feeling, but also so that if you have a dog that you may not necessarily need to physically guide every single step of the way, if they get distracted and decide to run off and ignore you, you've got a much easier way to just boop, reach down and grab that leash and control them. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Now when we're talking about what kind of leash to use and what length you should get, all you need is a very basic either slip lead or a 4 or 6 foot nylon or leather leash. That's all you need. Retractable leashes are of the devil. Don't get them. I hate retractable leashes. I know that they're very popular. Maybe I'll do a whole other live about why we don't use retractable leashes, but please don't use a retractable leash, especially just for handling purposes. You can't really manipulate them the way you would need to. So just get yourself a basic nylon or leather leash or a slip lead and use that during your training. It will make a world of difference in clarifying what it is that your dog is learning and in your ability to control the dog and how long you want to keep the leash on the dog. Not necessarily at one time, but over time I do get asked, well, when do I stop using the leash? When is your dog under voice control? The leash is a training tool, and you are using it to help you. You are using it just like any other training tool. If it's helping you, then use it. And if it's hurting you to not use it, then use it. So if you find that you let your dog loose, whether it be in the house or in your backyard, and you're struggling with something, then go put your leash back on. So, and one more point about the leashes, when we talk recall work, and that's another really, really, really important one, where I see people say, my dog does not come when called. But you find out the dog was never truly taught to come when called. You need a leash to guide the dog through the process of recall and literally show the dog what it means when you call it. So when you say your recall command, I use here. For every dog that I teach recall to, I teach it here and then leash pressure. Lots of repetitions, lots of rewarding for that. And then once we get our basics down with recall, you will want to look into getting like a 20 or 30 foot long line, and that's literally just a 20 or 30 foot leash, essentially. And that way, when you're working at more of a distance, say in your backyard, you've got more control. You may have practiced recall in your house with low-level distractions on your 4 or 6 foot leash hundreds of times, and your dog does great, and your dog's listening really well. And then the moment you take it out in the backyard, there's neighbor dogs, there's birds, there's cats, there's people walking, there's all sorts of distractions, and your dogs can be like, psst, bye, I don't care what you're saying because I'd rather go check this other thing out or sniff the ground or chase the squirrels. So if you just go straight from having your leash indoors to just letting your dog off leash and trying to practice recall outside, don't be surprised if it doesn't go well. So instead, get yourself a long line where you can practice that recall, and you've got the long line to help provide guidance initially, and then you've got it there as a seat belt when you start doing more proofing work with your distractions. So maybe you're not giving leash guidance the moment you recall, but you recall, and if the dog ignores you, blows you off, whatever, you can then reinforce with your leash. So that's what I've got for today. Apparently now I can't talk. Use your leashes. Leashes are so critical in the training process, and they just help clarify things for your dogs. When I say it makes life easier for you, it makes it easier for them too. It makes them understand what it is that you want from them so much better, and you'll have a lot better results. I think I have bored May to death. That's kind of how she lives in general. She just likes to hang out. So thank you guys who are here watching live. I see Brenda, if you're still watching, hi. Andy, that's my brother, hello. I see Danny, maybe just hopped on. Hi, Danny. If you are just catching the very end of this, the replay will be up in a couple minutes, and I will be here tomorrow with another tip for you guys. Thanks, and take care.